I'm standing under the brightest spotlight in the ballroom, looking out over hundreds of executives, investors, and guests dressed in black tie. Cameras flash. My name echoes through the speakers as the host congratulates me on leading the most successful merger in our firm's history. Then I see them, my ex-husband, my younger sister, and his mother. All three are frozen near the back of the room. My sister's champagne glass slips from her fingers and shatters across the marble floor. My ex's face drains of color. His mother, who once looked me straight in the eyes and declared that my own sister was the stronger, prettier woman, stares at the giant screen, displaying my name beside the title, Global Managing Partner. For several long seconds, nobody moves. The room falls strangely quiet. They never expected to see me here. They certainly never imagined I'd be the woman everyone had gathered to celebrate. I watch recognition spread across their faces like a slow-moving storm. My ex instinctively reaches for my sister's hand. She pulls away. Good, because this wasn't even the best part. The chairman smiles beside me. We'd also like to recognize the woman whose leadership transformed this company. Applause erupts again. Standing ovation. Everyone rises. Everyone except the three people who once convinced me I wasn't enough. They remain rooted in place, unable to clap, unable to look away, unable to understand how the woman they discarded had become the most important person in the room. 3 years earlier, I used to believe loyalty was enough to build a marriage. I was wrong. At 32, I worked long hours as a corporate attorney in Boston, while my husband, Daniel, bounced between business ideas that never seemed to succeed. I paid most of the bills without complaint because I believed marriage meant carrying each other through difficult seasons. Daniel called me ambitious. His mother called me cold. Neither ever thanked me for keeping our lives afloat. My younger sister, Emma, practically lived at our house after ending another relationship. I welcomed her, cooked dinners, listened to her cry, bought groceries when she couldn't afford them. She called me her best friend. Looking back, I wonder how long they laughed behind my back. The first warning came in tiny moments. Daniel suddenly guarded his phone. Emma stopped looking me directly in the eyes. Family dinners became awkward whenever I entered the room. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, everyone smiled a little too quickly. "You overthink everything," Daniel would say. That became his favorite sentence. Remember that detail. It matters later. One Sunday afternoon, I came home early from a client meeting. Their shoes were by the front door. Daniel's laughter drifted upstairs. Emma's voice followed. I climbed the stairs quietly. Their bedroom door wasn't fully closed. I pushed it open. Time stopped. There they were. My husband. My sister. In my bed. Neither even noticed me at first. When they finally did, Daniel sighed as though I'd interrupted something inconvenient. "You weren't supposed to be home." Those 6 words hurt even more than what I'd seen. Emma burst into tears. Daniel didn't. He simply sat there, calm, annoyed, almost relieved. That should have been the end. Instead, it became the beginning of something even crueler. Within days, Daniel moved into his mother's house. Emma disappeared with him. Then came the phone call. His mother insisted we meet. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I still don't know why. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I wanted someone to tell me this nightmare wasn't real. Instead, I walked into the most humiliating conversation of my life. She folded her hands across the kitchen table and smiled. "You've always been impressive professionally," she began. I almost believed compassion was coming. Then she continued, "But men don't marry resumes." I stared at her. She leaned closer. "Emma is softer. She's warmer. And if we're being honest," she looked me up and down, "she's the prettier sister." I couldn't speak. She wasn't finished. Daniel deserves someone who makes him feel like a man. Then came the final blow. "Emma's pregnant." The room spun. I don't remember standing. I barely remember leaving. I only remember sitting alone in my car, unable to breathe. That was their first mistake. The divorce happened quickly. Daniel demanded assets he hadn't earned. His mother encouraged every outrageous request. Emma never once apologized. By then, she proudly showed off her growing pregnancy on social media. Mutual friends quietly chose sides. Some believed Daniel's version, that I had prioritized work over family, that I'd driven him away. I stopped defending myself. Silence became my protection. Boston suddenly felt too small. Every cafe held memories. Every street reminded me of promises buried beneath betrayal. I accepted an opportunity in New York with an international consulting firm. The salary wasn't spectacular. I rented a tiny apartment. Half my furniture came from thrift stores. Some nights dinner was instant noodles and coffee, but for the first time in months, I could breathe. Nobody knew my story there. Nobody pitied me. Nobody whispered. They simply judged my work. And my work spoke louder than gossip ever could. I volunteered for impossible projects, stayed later than everyone else, learned skills outside my job description. While others chased titles, I chased competence. Months became years. Promotions followed, then international assignments, then leadership. One executive took notice after I quietly resolved a negotiation everyone else believed had failed. He became my mentor. People underestimate calm, he once told me. They mistake silence for weakness. I never forgot those words. Meanwhile, news from Boston occasionally reached me. Daniel's startup collapsed. Again. Emma struggled with motherhood. His mother blamed everyone except her son. Their perfect little fantasy wasn't nearly as perfect anymore. Still, I never wished them harm. Success had become a far more satisfying goal than revenge. Then one afternoon, my assistant walked into my office. "You've been invited to represent the firm at the annual Northeast Leadership Gala." I glanced at the guest list. The event was in Boston, hosted jointly by several major corporations. Our company had recently acquired one of the city's largest consulting groups. Hundreds of executives would attend, including companies where Daniel frequently sought investors. I accepted immediately. Not because of him, because I had earned it. Nobody in that room knew the truth. The night arrived. I wore a navy gown I'd almost talked myself out of buying. Simple, elegant, nothing flashy. Confidence doesn't need sequins. As I entered the ballroom, old memories rushed back. For one brief moment, I felt like the broken woman who had driven away nearly broke. Then someone greeted me, then another, then another. People I had never met thanked me for my leadership, asked for photographs, requested introductions. My past quietly faded beneath my present, until I heard a familiar voice. "Wait." I turned. Daniel. He blinked several times. "I knew your name sounded familiar." Emma stood beside him holding a clutch purse. His mother stared openly. For several awkward seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Daniel laughed nervously. "So, you're here working the event?" "Working." I almost smiled. Before I could answer, one of our senior directors hurried over. "There you are. The chairman's looking everywhere for you." He turned toward Daniel. "Oh, have you met our global managing partner?" Daniel frowned. "Our what?" The director smiled proudly. "She's leading tonight's keynote." Silence. Absolute silence. His mother's lips parted slightly. Emma looked at the floor. Daniel forced another laugh. "That's impressive." But the worst part was still ahead. Minutes later, the ballroom lights dimmed. The chairman walked onto the stage. He introduced our company's newest strategic vision. Then my photograph filled 2 enormous screens. My biography followed: international deals, leadership awards, charitable initiatives, standing ovation. I walked onto the stage. From the podium, I could clearly see Daniel. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, emotionally, as though arrogance had finally collapsed beneath reality. I delivered my speech. Not once did I mention betrayal. Not once did I look directly at them. Because this night wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. When I finished, applause thundered through the ballroom. Afterward, dozens of guests surrounded me. Investors, journalists, executives. While speaking with one group, I noticed Daniel approaching. He hesitated before finally saying my name. "I owe you an apology." Maybe he meant it. Maybe he simply wanted something. It didn't matter anymore. I smiled politely. "I genuinely hope your family is well. Nothing more. Nothing less." Then another executive called me away. Our conversation ended before it truly began. That was my revenge. Not insults. Not humiliation. Indifference. Weeks later, I learned Daniel had failed to secure funding from several firms that attended the gala. His reputation never recovered. Emma eventually left him. His mother, according to mutual acquaintances, rarely mentioned my name anymore. As for me, I bought a home overlooking the harbor, mentored young women entering corporate law, and every year I quietly donated scholarships for students rebuilding their lives after family hardship. Pain had introduced me to strength I never knew existed. If Daniel had remained faithful, I might never have discovered the woman I was capable of becoming. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying the people who broke you. It's building a life so full that their opinions become irrelevant. I left Boston nearly broke, convinced my life had ended. Years later, I returned with something money could never buy: peace. And as I walked off that stage, I realized something that made every painful memory worth surviving. The strongest woman had never been the prettier sister. The strongest woman was simply the one who kept walking when everyone expected her to fall. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who they were dealing with? Tell me your story in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more revenge stories every week.